Well, hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hope you are doing great wherever the show finds you around the world. I'm back and we're getting ready to record episode 68 of Mike in the Midwest. So let's do it. Let's get going. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 68 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. My name, of course, is Mike Rahman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can find, as you know, at beourguestpodcast.com. You can follow me on social media at beourguestmike. Follow me this weekend because we'll be talking about this in just a few minutes. I'll be in the windy city of Chicago. I know this is a crazy week, so follow along on social media. Who knows what I'll be posting? Hopefully, maybe tomorrow night or Saturday night, I'll be having some Chicago style pizza for dinner. I don't know. I'm not good at this stuff when I go to places I don't know, like Disney. So we'll see how this all kind of works out. But hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. Kind of checking in here from St. Louis. We're recording this show on Thursday, October 7th, 2021. So we've now made it to October. It's the Halloween season here soon, and the weather has turned warm again here in the Midwest, which is not great for marathon running here in the next couple of days. We'll talk about that here in just a bit as well. But hopefully, maybe you're having a touch of fall where you live, and you're having a great week. And thank you for being here. So let's dive into some feedback from last week's show, and then let's talk about what I wanted to talk about. I got kind of two topics. We're going to split today's show a little bit, but let's hit the feedback from last week's show. Last week we talked about VHSs and VCRs. Back in the day before streaming media, we really thought we were at the edge of technology when we had videotapes in our homes and we could watch movies whenever we wanted. Now, we did have to rewind those movies. Be kind, always rewind. And we had to do that. And, we had all that stuff. We could take stuff off of the TV. I always, like I talked about last week, recorded the Zippo Awards every Friday night, the best, the worst, and the weirdest performances of the week. And it was always fun. But then we got DVDs. And now we're living in a world where we can just watch anything we want on, well, you got to subscribe to all kinds of different services to get what you want, I guess, nowadays. But let's hit the feedback from last week and see what folks said. Trisha Helwig is here, and I got to send a shout out to Trisha and her daughter. They sent me a video, which we'll talk about again here in a second, with a huge encouraging message for the Chicago Marathon this Sunday. And it meant the world to me. It means the world to me because I am super nervous about this race. And I'm really nervous. It's Thursday. I got 4 days until the race. Still super nervous about this race, and that made me smile. It warmed my heart. So thank you so much for that, Trisha. And I pass those kind words along to your daughter. It means so very much. I have it right there on my phone. I favorited it on Twitter. So before the race, I'm sure I'm going to play that right there in the corral as we get ready to run all around that city and see the Chicago River and all that stuff, the big buildings. That means a lot. So thank you for doing that. Trisha, with the feedback from last week's show, says, VHS, be kind, rewind, rest in peace, Blockbuster. I watched The Little Mermaid on VHS so much that I wore the tape out and had to have it replaced. You know what? I think that was true of Paige. Paige watched The Little Mermaid so much when she was little. And I do remember, I talk about that trip where we took Paige's best friend Molly to Walt Disney World when they were 7. And again, back then we didn't fly, we always drove. And on this trip, we drove my in-laws Monte Carlo. So it was Pam and myself and the two girls in the back seat of the Monte Carlo. Not a great, road trip car. It's a fast car. It was a really cool looking car. But we had all this junk for a week at Walt Disney World, and a Monte wasn't very big. It's like a race car. And you got to entertain 7-year-old girls. So we had this. Do you remember those, like, for a while there, you had those DVD players you would hang on the back of the seat. Well, they had these portable portable VCRs back in the day. They were big, but we found one of those and we had that in the back seat of that car. And the girls would watch the VHS of The Little Mermaid over and over and over. That and Full House episodes going down to Florida. And it scarred me. I tried to turn the radio up so I didn't have to hear them, but then they would complain because they couldn't hear the movie, which they knew the movie by heart. But yeah, I remember that. They watched the Little Mermaid all the way through Georgia and Tennessee and Kentucky and Florida. Yeah, it was fun. Trisha continues. I also remember in middle school that my family had a life-changing event. We got a VHS player that you could program to record at a specific time. We were often at a high school football game on Friday nights, so we would record the shows on ABC that were part of the TGIF lineup. Personally, a big fan of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And Mike, you'll appreciate this. My dad was cheap and would record over and over on the same blank VHS tapes until the picture quality was so bad you could hardly tell what you were watching. And good luck in Chicago. Yes, I did that as well. So did my dad. Not cheap, let's call it frugal. Why buy a new tape when you have a perfectly good one that you could record on just one more time? Thanks for the feedback, Trisha. I appreciate all you do for our community and love having you here. Next feedback is from Michelle down in Boynton Beach, Florida. And shout out to Michelle. Got to see her down there for the 50th anniversary, and we got to ride Splash Mountain together. We got to hang out at the Lizard meetup there over by Splash Mountain. It was so good catching up because you might not know this, but Michelle was there in 2008 at our first meetup at Mouse Fest. And it's now 2021. So talk about sticking with the show for a long time. Her, our two daughters, Paige and her daughter Sam, little bitty girls back when this show started. Now Paige did a semester over in Ireland. Her daughter's doing a semester right now in London. We commiserated with about what it's like when your kid's on a different continent. You can't even, if they do something silly or, what are you going to do? They're not even on the same continent as you. So, yeah, it was fun kind of catching up with Michelle. Don't get to see her enough, but it was like the old days instantly. So it was great to see Michelle this weekend. She says, my dad was also a pro at recording off the TV. I was in charge of recording the Cosby Show on Thursday nights and bringing it to school to watch in our health class. I guess our teacher was a big fan. So funny. Health class and Cosby Show. If you'd only fast forwarded a few years, that's kind of hilarious. When I moved away from home for a few years in the 90s, I didn't get the channel with one of my favorite shows, Judge Judy. Oh my gosh, my grandma loved Judge Judy. And my dad does now. My sister recorded a month's worth of shows on a VHS and sent it to me, and it felt like the greatest gift ever. Fun topic. I love that that old meme where she's tapping her watch. I love that. That's so funny. You know what? So I listen to, again, I talk about this quite often. I listen to a wide variety of podcasts. I listen to some very professionally done shows, but the ones I tend to like the most are kind of like our show where it's, folks that are doing the podcast out of their basements. Folks that are just a fan of some kind of really specific kind of niche. And I listen to a lot of folks that talk about things like retro topics and things like that of the past growing up. In one of the shows I was listening to, it's just a guy in Oklahoma talks about growing up, and he's the same age that I am. It's called You Don't Know Flack, and Flack was his name on the Commodore 64 bulletin boards. He tells stories about growing up in Oklahoma, which is similar to me, but different. And one of the shows that he dives into is about his history with the MTV channel. And how he first saw MTV and how they had an antenna, and he was getting it illegally for a while because it just kind of came through on their big antenna on their TV for a couple of years and so forth. And he was talking about how he had relatives in a different part of the country that they would visit a couple of times a year, like at Easter and Christmas, and they did not have access to MTV, but they'd heard about it, right? Because it was it was like a phenomenon for kids in the 80s. So what he would do, again, kind of like Michelle's friend here, is that Rob would record, MTV for like 6 hours onto a tape and then take it to his cousins and give it to them. And that was like the greatest gift ever because they could watch, like the videos obviously, but also the MTV news and see what the VJs looked like and all that stuff. And they would always, like, each time they met up, they would take the old tape, Rob would take it back, and he'd take them a new one, and they'd keep exchanging them so he could update them with the latest music and stuff. So yeah, I think a lot more of that happened than you might guess, and it was kind of a way to exchange media back in the day. But just think about how easy that is nowadays. I mean, think about this. For example, this past weekend, while we were down at Walt Disney World, of course, we were lucky enough to get to go to, we got some good ADRs. We went to Space 220. We went to Steakhouse 71. We didn't even talk about this on this week's shows because we didn't get to it. We did Ratatouille, And so we're all taking pictures, right? Ricky's taking pictures of what she's eating and on Ratatouille, and Scott's taking them, and Pam Forrester's taking them, and we're all taking pictures. So we all have different angles, and some people have better cameras than others. Some people have better angles where they're standing and light and so forth. And so we all want to get kind of these good shots to share. And think about this, like back in the day, it was so hard to share media, especially photos or videos or anything like that. I mean, and I don't know if you use this, but if you don't, it's very, very underrated if you have an iOS device. When you can airdrop photos, because when we sit around at meals, we just select the photos we want. You just go in there, make sure your airdrop is turned on. You just boom, 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 click on who you want to send them to, and bam, they're immediately in your photo roll. I mean, it could not be, it's easier than texting, it's easier than emailing photos. If you use that airdrop, I mean, those photos are just like you took them immediately right there in your photo library, and it's a piece of cake. I mean, 20 years ago, you would have had to go to the photomat and get a double copy of that, and it would have been a mess. So we've come a long way, and things are so easy nowadays. Do I sound like the carousel of progress? Things were so easy. So thanks for the great feedback. If you have feedback on this show or any show, drop by patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast, and we'll share it next Thursday. Okay, let's jump into this week's topic. And I kind of titled this show, I think I titled it 50 Years and 26.2 Miles, because I'm going to kind of talk about last weekend a little bit, some of the stuff I didn't get to on the show, and then this coming up weekend. So last weekend, of course, is the 50 years. We celebrated 50 years of Walt Disney World, and it was a good time. We talk about it on Wednesday's show, this past Wednesday. We also talk about it on tomorrow's show, on the Friday show. And we'll be talking about it more on next week's shows because Pam was still down there. I think she will be back next week so that we can get her take on things, because Pam got to go. We didn't talk about this whole lot on the podcast, but she got to go to all the media stuff. She got to see the Magic Bands Plus, and she is all in on those. She thinks they are really cool. She's seen them in person. She got to see Christina Aguilera at the media event for the very first Disney Enchantment fireworks show. She was right there, and she said, they had a moment because they're both from Pittsburgh. Whatever. She's so funny. So she got the VIP treatment for the 50th. The rest of us were just kind of going around, as Joe Schmoes, like we are, and we had a great, great time. So when I went down to some of the highlights that I didn't talk about on the podcast, first of all, staying at Pop Century was awesome again. If you're looking for a room that's a standard room that's in a good location, I stayed in building 1, which is the 50s. But it was a standard, it was on the 3rd floor facing the parking lot, but it worked out great. I could get to the Skyliner pretty quickly. Not necessarily close to the Skyliner, but again, it wasn't very far from the Skyliner, really close to the food court. Just worked out well. The rooms are great there. Great for running. Shout out to Marco and his family from South Carolina, who I saw on the running path a couple of mornings. And it's a good place to stay. I was originally at the Coronado, and I was going solo, and I could save $400 over the course of the weekend by staying at Pop Century. Plus I gained the Skyliner. So I kind of put those two things, together and decided that's what I was going to do. Did a little Disney math, and, money's tight nowadays. So I saved that little bit of money there, and no family. So stayed at Pop, and great decision, because the Skyliner worked out wonderfully. So being down there for the 50th was amazing. It was really, really a neat experience. And it was way better than I was expecting. I was kind of worried that it was going to be one of those situations where you're excited that you're there, but it's so much work that you're just constantly kind of in a state of chaos, or you're constantly in a state of, discomfort mentally, because you're trying to figure out like how to survive. It wasn't like that at all. And I think what it was I kind of put into my mind that I was going to let the experience kind of come to me rather than force the experience to happen. And what I mean by that is, we kind of talked about this on the podcast on Wednesday, is that as we all got together on Thursday night, the 30th, we had to come to a decision as to how we were going to attack Friday morning. Were we going to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning? Were we going to line up at 4:30 in the morning? Were we going to get there at 10? What was our plan? And I'll be honest, and we all have different things that we like. And I've never been one that's into merchandise. again, I think I mentioned this on the show for Wednesday, but my wife is a minimalist and she hates clutter and stuff. And so if I bring home like collectibles, which I like that kind of stuff, but I can't put it out. So I really can't buy that stuff. So it really saved me because the only thing really you needed to be there early for was merchandise and collectible popcorn buckets and stuff. So I got, to the Magic Kingdom about 8:30 or 9 and I was fine. It was great. So that made it was great because nobody was in line for attractions at all day on Friday. So I just had a good old time riding rides and hanging out. Got to see Chris Smith, good buddy from Alabama, writes awesome historical books on Walt Disney World. Um, got to hang out, talk a little Alabama football, some Disney, compare notes on Main Street and just start the day the right way. And got some pictures with some listeners from New York, and it was amazing. And thank you to all the listeners who came up and said hello, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there were so many folks that came up and said they listened to the show. And when you do that, I don't know, sometimes it catches me by surprise because truly I forget that people listen to the podcast when I record it. I'm sitting here right now in the basement. It's me. Riley is at my feet. There's nobody home in this house. And I try to get into my mind that folks are out there listening, but it's hard for me to fathom that somebody right now in New York City is listening to this show, or somebody in Alabama, or somebody in California. So thank you. If you come up and say, you listen to the show in the parks, that means so much to me. And just that you listen anywhere means so much to me. So thank you very much for that. I will say too, down at Walt Disney World, when I think back at what really was the standout of the weekend as far as the new experiences, because folks are going to ask, the Beacon of Magic, which is the Spaceship Earth version of it, because you have the four parks, you have Cinderella Castle, Spaceship Earth, Tower of Terror, and the Tree of Life. Epcot just flexes on this. If you're listening and you're a patron here, you're a big time Disney fan. I'm telling you, you have to make it a point to stand in the entrance plaza at Epcot at night, probably about 7:30 or so, anytime after dark, and just enjoy. What can I say? What should you enjoy? Enjoy Epcot. This is like when you're standing there in that entrance plaza looking up at Spaceship Earth with the new beacons of magic lights on it. You can't see the construction beyond Spaceship Earth because it's dark. You don't see any of that construction. What you see is the Epcot that I think we all wish we had, and the Epcot that we all, when we close our eyes at night and we dream of Epcot, that's it. And when the monorail snakes by there on the beam, and now it's got those glowing LED lights that match the color of the monorail, it's almost like perfect Epcot there. It's a little bitty piece, it's not very big. It's the entrance plaza with the awesome flags blowing in the wind. The awesome background loop that's been composed for the entrance plaza, the mini show for the Beacons of Magic, little mini show. I'm telling you, you have to go see this. This is, to me, and again, everybody has different opinions, and I respect everybody's opinions. Mine is not right. Mine is not wrong, but mine is not right. Mine is just an opinion. Opinions are everybody can have them. I am moved just as much by this standing in the entrance plaza at Epcot as I am seeing Harmonious. I would say to me, it's that they're equal. And so, but I mean, your average park fan, your average Walt Disney World Vacation fan it's not balanced that way. They're going to enjoy Harmonious a lot more. They're just going to look at Spaceship Earth and be like, ooh, it's a golf ball with pretty lights. I mean, I get that. That's fine. I'm a nerd. So, maybe you're a nerd too, probably. So you'll get a kick out of it. So make it a point to do that. Ratatouille, we didn't even get into that at all on Friday's show because we just ran out of time. We went over 50 minutes on both shows. Ratatouille, I turned to Scott and I said, this is a really great Disney ride. And here's what we talked about. I said, this ride is all, and I haven't been to, Ricky's been to Paris and ridden it in Paris. And I know some of you guys have. I haven't, and I stayed pretty spoiler free. I mean, I knew kind of what it was going to be like because it's, I haven't seen the whole movie, but I've seen the part where, the rat goes through the kitchen and it's being chased and stuff. And that's what the ride basically is. And so what I told Scott is this is a really good Disney ride. It's just fun. Everybody can ride it, right? You don't go upside down. You don't go 98 miles an hour. It's not going to make you barf. You could get a little motion sick if you get, kind of queasy with 3D effects, but it's real light on that because it does have 3D glasses, but it's not horrible. I don't think it's even as bad as like Flight of Passage. And there's movement, which I think helps a lot with that. I thought it was just a fun Disney ride. Like it's a dark ride, and it's a dark ride to the 2021, build expectations that I think the current theme park fan would expect. I mean, there were a lot of practical props, there were a lot of virtual screen props, there was movement, there was heat, there were smells. It was fun. I mean, this is exactly what I would expect people go to a Disney theme park to experience. It was fun, because you could ride this one with grandma, and grandma will be laughing, you'll be laughing, the little kid will be laughing. It's a family attraction, which I love because I think I will go on this again and again. And what it does, it really brings that whole France pavilion to life because now you can go back there and ride. Once the whole hype dies down, you can ride Ratatouille. You can grab a crepe, which I didn't get to do because I had an ADR at Space 220, so I didn't get a chance to do that. I know, boohoo. But I will try a crepe next time. And it's just beautiful back there, especially at night. There's a beautiful fountain. So we'll get to that probably next week. But yeah, make it a point to do Ratatouille. Get that virtual boarding group there and go for that. So we didn't talk about that episode. I don't want to make you wait a whole week, but yes, that was a home run. I thought it was as good. It was better than I was expecting. I mean, it's nothing. It's not some, I wouldn't call it an e-ticket attraction, but it's a great attraction. It's exactly what you go to Walt Disney World for. It's a fun family attraction. What else? What else? What else? I will say again, Ricky and I were riding back after being at Epcot. She was staying at Pop Century, so was I. At the end of the night, one night after we watched Harmonious, this was Saturday night, I think. I still say that the Skyliner is such not only a great transportation mode, but also it's just a great place to meet people. We were sitting in there just kind of reflecting on our meal because we had eaten that night at Space 220. We'd seen Harmonious. So we were kind of comparing notes on the night, just talking about stuff because Ricky and I talk every week on the podcast, but we don't get to see each other in person a whole lot. So we're just kind of catching up on life. And it's funny how on Disney transportation, and this happens also on boats and on buses and on monorails, but especially on the Skyliner, I think because you're sitting kind of across from each other. And usually there's, somewhere between 4 to 8 people in a gondola. And also you're suspended there. You're kind of, you're going to be in there maybe 10 minutes together. Is that we struck up a conversation with the couple across from us and the couple that was sitting kind of diagonal from us. And we had great conversations because we were riding that long line from Epcot all the way back to Pop Century. And we talked about, what we thought about, eating at Space 220 because the couple across from us, they wanted to eat there. They couldn't get an ADR, which is understandable. A lot of folks haven't. So we kind of gave our thoughts on that. And they talked about how they had gone to Oga's for the first time that night because they'd been to the studios earlier that day. And they told us all about that. And we talked about because obviously everybody was coming from Epcot, what they thought. Each couple, I asked them. I didn't give my opinion. I did not give my opinion. I asked, "What did you think of Harmonious?" And each couple gave their thoughts. And both couples had seen Illuminations back in the day. They're longtime Disney fans, and it was just fun to laugh and share opinions and just kind of have fun being in that gondola together, talking Disney, and just hearing what other folks have to say because we were on vacation. We didn't have to stress about work. We were talking about some fun stuff, and it was really, really neat. And in the end, they said they would listen to the podcast because we told them, it was kind of weird because these other two couples were obviously couples, like they were married. And so some of the stuff we were saying would have been weird if they would have assumed that Ricky and I were married because it didn't make sense. So I had to just, before we even really got into the conversation, I was like, this is Ricky. She's not my wife. We do a podcast together. We're very good friends. So that, because the story would, I forgot one of the stories would have got really weird. So yeah. So hopefully they're listening to the podcast and they'll enjoy it because we had to end up telling them how to find the podcast and all that. Because we're like, wow, you're doing Space 220, you're doing Steakhouse 71, you're doing all this, yeah, all this. So that we had to tell them what was going on. So we had a good time. Here's the good news. If you are headed to Walt Disney World anytime soon, you are going to have so much fun. New fireworks shows, new restaurants, new attractions, and all this merchandise and all these new snacks. Oh, and you know what? I told my wife this. Here's what I'm mad about. The one thing I was excited for, the one thing I said, this is what I'm going to Florida for. I wanted to get the Uncle Orville ice cream in the bathtub in Tomorrowland over at Anti Gravities. I totally forgot to get that. November, I'm coming for you, Uncle Orville ice cream. Gotcha. Okay, real quick. Let me close this out because I'm in between this real weird week. Got back on Monday, heading out tomorrow. So I've been working really hard this week to catch up. Shout out to Ben Lappin, who's taking care of my guests last weekend while I was gone. And he's taking care of my guests at the Magic for Less again this weekend while I'm running enough in Chicago. I want to, again, kind of real quick talk about the Chicago Marathon because a lot of you guys are runners and a lot of you guys do the Run Disney races with me down there, and they're always so much fun. I don't get nervous about Run Disney race weekends. I don't. I love them. They're just fun. I just like seriously. I sign up for Run Disney races. I pack. I throw my stuff in the bags. I go down. I go to the expos. I go to the cross. I never ever get nervous about a Run Disney race. Even Dopey. I don't get nervous about running 48.6 miles. Even on the Sunday, the full marathon, I don't get nervous. Like it's like it's a party. It's like I'm just going out and hanging out with my friends. Guys, Chicago Marathon is freaking me out. And it's been freaking me out for about 2 weeks now. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never run a full marathon outside of Disney, and I don't even know what I've gotten myself into. Like this marathon, because I didn't look that close when I signed up for this like 2 years ago. We don't even start till 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, what's up with that? I love how Disney starts at like 5:30. It's going to be almost 80 degrees in Chicago on Sunday. It's going to be hot. Like when it's that hot here, I run on the treadmill. I'm a wimp. And that's only for 13 miles. I got to go twice that in heat. So I'm super nervous about Chicago. I'm also nervous that, there are going to be some lizards there. I know we have about 6 or 7 of us that I know that are running the marathon. I know Julie and Neil and Kate. There's a few other folks that are running it, and I hope to run into them and be able to see them on the course. I know there's folks, Jessica's going to be on the course volunteering, some other folks cheering. If you see me, I'll be in my lizard shirt. Please give a yell and a holler. I would appreciate that. But it's just, I'm comfortable with how Disney races go. I know I'm not running through a castle. I know that Carissa and Rudy and all those folks are not going to be there yelling, go lizards and all that stuff. That's the weird thing is that the Be Our Guest podcast lizards have kind of got a reputation for all the Run Disney races. Like we're known because I think that we do things right. We encourage not only our teammates, but we encourage everybody else on the course. We're a positive little group out there. And I love our family out there. We have so many of us at the Run Disney races. You cannot go anywhere without running into a lizard. Man, I was reading something last night about the Chicago Marathon. It said they're expecting 1 million spectators on the course of over 26.2 miles. And you run through 29 neighborhoods and you cross the Chicago River 5 times. I can't even remember what the name of my hotel is that I'm staying in tomorrow night, to be honest. I got to look all this stuff up tonight. So I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but I'm sure it's going to be fine. But I had to share with somebody. I've been sharing with my wife, and this is the only person, and Scott. I am kind of freaked out about this, and I hope I make it to the finish. I think I will. I haven't trained more than 13 miles, but I think I can make it if I just go slow and steady. I broke out my race shoes this morning for my first run in those, and they worked out okay. I got some Mizzou Nikes. So we'll see. And I think there's a Chicago Marathon app. Jessica just texted me this morning and told me there's an app where you can track people. So if you want to track me, I think you can track me on the Chicago Marathon app and see if I in real time how it's going on Sunday. I think it starts at 8 in the morning. So you probably check me on Sunday afternoon, but we'll see how it goes. But really what I wanted to say is that you guys, by being here on Patreon, and more importantly and more globally, being a supporter of the podcast just in general, you have allowed me to live out my dreams in so many different ways. Doing the podcast is huge. I always wanted to work in radio. My dad worked in radio. I wanted to be like my dad, but I also wanted to be a school teacher, and I did that for a long time. But then I like travel, so I try. Now I'm doing that full time because I've been blessed enough to do that. But doing this podcast has brought me so many friends around the world and has opened up so many doors for me. And in a way, the podcast started me running. I would have never run, but Phil Scheingold on a podcast cruise got me signed up for the 5K at Castaway Key. I walked most of it, but I jogged a little bit of it, and it all started from there. And then Mike Bankhead shared his story on the podcast, and I thought, shoot, if Mike Bankhead could overcome what he overcame through running, what am I doing? I don't have any excuses. Why don't I give it a shot? And I wanted to be a little bit like Mike. And because of that, I can say I'm a marathoner. I've done it a few times now, and I kind of got the bug. So trying to keep myself, trying to challenge myself. It's one of those things that when you have daughters, like I do, I have a 24-year-old daughter and I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I'm not getting any younger, but I want them to always see dad as somebody who is pretty cool, and I don't want to be the, just dad. I hope that on Monday morning, that my two daughters will say, that's pretty cool. Dad ran a marathon again. It's pretty cool. I'm not really out there to impress anybody, but I sure would like to impress my two girls. That'd be pretty cool. So anyway, I just had to talk to you guys. I love you guys, and I appreciate you being here and allowing me to live out my dreams. And thank you for supporting the show. Together, we get to do a whole lot of good around the world. So wherever you are, you have a great weekend. I hope to talk to you next week. Hope it'll be a good one. We'll have a lot of stories, I'm sure. It'll be a lot of Charlie horses and a lot of cramps and a lot of blisters. So be ready for that. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.